Hi everyone, this is the group on the Stonewall riots and beyond, or group 5. We'll be talking about the Stonewall riots all the way up to politics like Harvey Milk and some other movements in between from the years 1969 all the way to 1979. And without further ado, let's begin. So the first topic we want to talk about is Harvey Milk and his impact on the gay liberation movement. By this time, those in the LGBTQ plus community were moving towards a liberation that was highly deserved. This chapter speaks on the Stonewall riots that many of us know as the turning point of the history of LGBTQ plus people. So we begin with Dan Way, a former city supervisor of San Francisco, snuck into City Hall and shot both the mayor, George Moscone, and Harvey Milk, and shot them dead, of course. This was a big issue because Harvey Milk was the first openly gay member of the Board of Supervisors in San Francisco, which was unheard of. West's lawyer blamed his decision on the sole basis of mental illness and that he was only sentenced to 7 years in prison and was not charged correctly. The public was extremely outraged as members of the LGBT community were furious with this decision. During the White Night riots, members of the LGBT community took to the streets to dismantle the patriarchy and vandalize property of the San Francisco Police Department, which is reminiscent of the BLM movement earlier this year. So Milk's assassination paved the way to increase LGBTQ plus visibility and the liberation movement. The night Harvey Milk was killed, a huge crowd gathered outside City Hall to mourn him, and a candlelight vigil was broadcast nationally, kind of bringing our rights to the forefront. The Human Rights Ordinance in 1977, Dade County, Florida, passed a human rights ordinance including gay and lesbians among those protected from discrimination of the law. Anita Bryant, a former Miss America, led a campaign called Save Our Children, rebelling against the ordinance, marching with the catchphrase, homosexuals cannot reproduce, so they must recruit, with Harvey Milk coming back to her saying, my name is Harvey Milk, and I am here to recruit you, which was poetic justice almost. The Save Our Children campaign won, overturning the Human Rights Ordinance with almost 70% of the vote, where the Save Our Children was initially a response to an ever-growing gay and lesbian liberation movement, which initially found visibility as a way to increase political power. The Gay Liberation Front formed and began to organize for gay rights and liberation such as job protection, end of police harassment, decriminalization of sodomy, and raised awareness about the capitalist system who oppressed the people in our community, and they strongly encouraged gay and lesbians to assert their visibility and claim political power. So we go to emerging visibility and activism, where many people associate the beginning of the LGBTQ plus visibility with the Stonewall riots occurring from June 27 to 28 of 1969 in the Greenwich Village district of New York City. The Stonewall Inn, which was a popular gay bar, was invaded by police and they started harassing the patrons. Most of the patrons who were arrested were later released, except for the bar employees, 3 drag queens, and 2 male-to-female transgender people who were held and loaded into police cars. Because of the occurrence, within a month, the gay liberation movement began and was beginning to be organized for gay rights. Since these riots at Stonewall in the 70s, the world has America has become a safer meeting place than it had been in the past. So the bar scene versus LGBT activists, generally there is a strong police divide between these two people where the LGBT activists critique those who believe they wasted time in the bar scene. They felt like they didn't really care about the bigger political issues, whether they did or not. Both of the political activists and the bar scene served different but equally important roles. In the bar scene side, it was a source of info for local clinics, as well as a place for gay candidates to distribute campaign brochures, a venue for people to share advertisements, and address for gay-friendly businesses. While on the LGBT activist side, they organized campaigns to gain visibility for LGBT people and further national and international political goals. The first national march on Washington was in October 1975 from there is 75,000 to 100,000 people marching to Washington to hold this first national march in support of lesbian and gay rights. Big names like Allen Ginsberg and Audre Lorde, as well as some others who were big in the gay rights field and wanted to advance our rights, as well as Angela Davis, who was a radical black writer and activist who was due to show. Unfortunately, she ended up not showing up because she was a part of the Communist Party who did not agree with the movements, quoting, saying, not supporting homosexual rights. And now we go to lesbian feminism. Lesbian feminism was a cultural movement that began in 1970 and in the 1980s, where there is a lot of lesbian art, like the lesbian writers Audre Lorde and Adrienne Rich, where the lesbian separatists wanted to get away from men and did not allow them to enter their group. They had the slogan, "Our body, ourselves," was to encourage women to learn more about their bodies and well-being. They even held hidden clinics to address issues like abortion and women's rights to choose. In the early 80s, the sex wars were happening with activist groups like WAVAW, Women's Against Violence Against Women, and WAP, Women Against Porn. They politicized the term like that feminism is a theory and lesbianism is a practice, with a lot of big names attributing to this queer theory. We're wrapping up with some fun facts. So the first fact that we found was, according to legend, Marsha P. Johnson and Sylvia Rivera, that denied the rumors of them throwing the first brick. In fact, many think that it was a butch lesbian by the name of Stormy D. Larvieri, In order for her to resist arrest, she threw a brick at an officer. This was the result of her first throwing the brick at Stonewall, where Johnson and Sylvia were credited. And originally, the Gay Liberation Front's slogan was Gay Power, but was later changed to Pride. There's actually four major films about Stonewall, where it's Stonewall 2015, Stonewall 1995, before Stonewall 1984, and Stonewall Uprising 2010. Where the last fact, where we see in the video on the left, drag queen Derek Barry was quoted not knowing the full history of Stonewall. I was actually shocked to hear that nobody was killed in it.
Like when people don't know what Stonewall is, you know what I mean?
Why don't you tell everybody what that is?
That was fighting for gay rights, and people were killed.
Nobody was killed at Stonewall.
Nobody was killed?
Nobody was killed at Stonewall.